though my body is broken and in pain, and yeah, I'd like more money, I'd like to own my own home, there's lots of things I'd like. Isn't it bloody brilliant that I'm alive and that I can still dance? It might cause me pain, but I can still dance.
This week is all about Vie. Vie is someone who absolutely helps people to find their fabulous. She's also very fabulous herself and has this notion. It's not about the skin. The skin is just the meat to the bones. It's all about how you are on the inside. A really, really important mantra. Before we get going, have you subscribed to the channel? Please do if you want. Give us all the usual likes, thumbs up, all that kind of jazz. And also, if you want to, head over to Instagram at The Digital Circus Life, where we are doing more about our adventure over there. Stand by. Vie, thank you so much for being here on the Digital Circus Live today. And as we start every single blinking episode, we start with one very important question.
I'm ready.
And I'm imagining before you even answer this, it's going to be quite a lengthy one with you, Vie, knowing you.
Can't say that. You just got to let Vie answer, see where it goes.
What are you trying to achieve right now?
Nothing.
Done.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Bye.
Yeah. I believe if we choose to be, we're all here to make a difference. And my difference that I have made, I am making, I continue to make, is that I want to leave the world a kinder, happier place than when I joined it. So everything I do is about that.
And as far as answers go, I think that is probably one of the best ones we've ever heard. It is about being kind and creating that happiness and doing something, leaving a little bit of a legacy. And legacy is something I definitely think you're doing in abundance right now.
I've got a question, right? So I mean, a lot of the people we chat to on the podcast, they all have what they're trying to achieve. And a lot of people want their own version of, we always say world domination, but really it's legacy, it's impact, you know, and everything else. Because world domination has a negative connotation associated with it, thanks to people like Genghis Khan. And yeah, so my question is, how far would you want that to reach? So I get you want to make the world a better place. I'm well on board with that. But, you know, do you want to do that person by person? Are you looking for this in masses just as much as you can? You know, I'm just curious as the kind of the next layer down from the statement, if that makes sense.
So although I am that person that talks to every person on a checkout and people at a bus stop, I cannot reach 7 billion people because I'm probably not going to be alive that long to be able to do that. But I very much believe in the ripple effect. So if I know, I've had lots of people over the years come to me and go, oh, I've started paying random people compliments because you do it. I don't know who those people are that they're reaching. And then those people are probably going to go, someone paid me a random compliment. I liked it. I'm going to do it for someone else. So I very much believe in the ripple effect. There's a brilliant children's story called Ordinary Mary's Extraordinary Day. And it starts off with someone left, she picked some blueberries from a bush or wherever blueberries grow from. Grow from, thank you. And she gives them to her next door neighbour who makes some pies, and then the pies get given to other people, and then they pass on other good deeds, and then they pass on other good deeds. And this book says that every good deed gets passed on to 5 more people. And then those 5 more people pass it on to 5 more people. And so by the end of the day, you really can reach billions of people. And it's such a simple concept, and we should all do more of it, I feel.
Why do you think people just don't know? I mean, I just think this is...
Well, that's a great question. Why did more people not?
I just don't... Because we share the similar sentiment to you. We will talk to every blooming person. We do the park and stride to school in the morning. So we park the car, we walk through the park and we drop off the kids. And we will say hello, good morning to every last person we walk through the park with. And it's always become a bit of a running joke with our friend. She's like, you say you have no friends because we have a very small, very our pool of friends, what I would call close friends, are very bijou, and we like it that way.
Is V's episode going to turn into us psychoanalyzing our friend base?
But we know a lot of people, and we say hello to everyone. So she's always surprised that we are that chatty, and I think I don't find it difficult. It's not like it's difficult. I just think that's a nice thing to do. And actually, it doesn't take much out of your day to just go, hi, how are you? You know, or smile, or put your hand up, or say good morning. Yeah. It's not difficult. Why do you think people find it such a struggle?
Firstly, I think people are so busy that they just don't think about it. And not in a bad way. We live in a society where busyness is a badge of honour, isn't it? But I think also pre-V, before I became who I am now, before I did all the work on myself, I wouldn't dream of talking to anybody else because I wouldn't think I was worth listening to. I had nothing important to say. Why would anyone want to talk to me? So I didn't do it then because I thought I wasn't good enough. It's not them. So I think a lot of it is a confidence thing. A lot of it is feeling insecure in who you are and what you have to say and not believing that you have any value. So some people do it because they're just like that. But for a lot of people, I think it is a lack of confidence, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think also, like, sometimes we forget there's a trillion reasons that person may not have said good morning that morning, right?
Yeah.
From their kids just being sick in the car, to lack of confidence, to it's a bit grey today and they're just not feeling the love, right? And it is really easy to kind of pull the people who don't together. So I guess the question is that do we think that's a focus thing? Do we actually just focus on the people who aren't doing it rather than the people who are doing it, you know? And then, you know, I don't know, just putting that out there. But the confidence one's a big one. I think that probably is therefore the reason for a lot, you know, that kind of, you know, even just saying good morning, that you've got to build up the confidence to be able to say that to a stranger. And what are they going to think of me when I say good morning type thing? You know, it is tricky. So what made you start on this path then?
I reached a point in life where my only options were up or out, to put it simply. And I am, those that know me, you know, you've seen my cat already, one of them. I just got a new kitten. And at that point, and I always make a commitment that I will be with them for as long as their lives. So I thought, well, I can't carry on doing what I'm doing. So I've got to change things. So I started challenging myself to do all the things I was told I couldn't do or I shouldn't do because no one would want to see me do them. No one cared about me. No one believed in me. So it was challenging myself to do that. And I will say I will never, ever bungee jump. But generally, I have a tendency to go, well, it's not going to kill me. All right, then I'll give it a go.
I reckon I could get a bit of elastic around your legs, Vie.
No, I'll do the horizontal one. I quite like the look of that, but no, never. But yeah, so it's a bit of a, I say to people, don't do it the way that I did it, you know, come close to death and then go, yeah, all right, then let's do everything. That is extreme, but it's worked for me, you know, and I get to do I've done a lot of incredible adventures just because I've gone, yeah, all right then. You
are one of those people in life, and I was saying this before we hit the record button as well. You are so exciting.
Don't mention bats, Emily. Don't mention bats again.
Okay, another joke. I've got dancing skeletons on my dress.
Oh, love that. Cool. But you are one of what I call life's yes people. And in fact, we were just watching last night Yes Day with our kids. And it's all about, you know, saying yes more and saying no less, and that, you know, and I always feel with you, I'm sure you do have a lot of boundaries of things you will and you won't do, but you give everything when you do take that bull by the horns 150,000%. And like, I just love following your adventure. It's so intriguing, and I think if you're going to live that life, you're living it to the fullest. You really, really are. So thank you for letting us follow your adventure, number one. Number two, I want to ask you then, Vie, because you just alluded to it, because you haven't always been Vie, have you? No. So for the benefit of our listeners, can you take us through who Vie is and why that had to change?
So Vie, I changed my name by default. I turned 13 last year, so I am a teenager again, which is great. Yeah. So I have 2 birthdays a year, my birthday and my name birthday, because I feel I am a queen. I deserve that. And I just like presents. But it for me, it started when I reached this point where I felt that I had such limited options and I had to change things. And so I love musicals. I love 50s clothes, 50s music, the musicals, not 50s ideals. Definitely not 50s ideals. And I was watching Singing in the Rain and the word burlesque flashed up. And I thought, I wonder if anyone still does that. and I looked it up and I found a class and I booked myself on and arranged a lift with a stranger before 10 minutes had passed, because I thought if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And I'd always loved dancing as a kid. But I grew up in a, let's say, dysfunctional family. And one of the things they did was tell me how fat and ugly I was and no one would ever want to look at me. So I should never dance in public. So I went to this class and I loved it. And someone there said, I want to put on a show. Will you help me? And I like helping. I've always done that. And so I said, yeah, all right then. And then she said, you've got to perform. I said, no. And if you keep in mind that at that point, my insecurities and my paranoia was so high that I couldn't cope with people singing me happy birthday, because that meant people were looking at me. The thought of standing on a stage was just mortifying. I always ended up being the narrator in school plays so that I could sit under the stage or by the side of the stage, never on the stage. But she eventually wore me down and I said, okay, I'm going to perform once. And I thought I was going to be so awful and that people were going to be so repulsed that they'd start vomiting, I'd start vomiting, they'd vomit more. It would be a whole vomit fest. So I planned how I would get to the Himalayas with my cat. And I was going to live in a nunnery.
That's an extreme escape, that is.
Yeah, but I thought it was going to be that bad. I really did.
Yeah. On stage here or off to the Himalayas with my cat?
Yeah. I don't even like it that cold.
Yeah.
And I'm not religious, so it was a very bad plan. But from that, I went on to become an international performer. Each time it was, I can't believe someone's booking me, but everyone did. And when I was doing that, people said, you don't look like an ordinary burlesque performer, which is nonsense because they're all shapes and sizes. So I started teaching that. At the same time, I found a clothing company that had clothes that I've always loved. So I started wearing those and going to vintage dance nights. People saw me dancing and said, you don't look like an ordinary dance teacher. So will you teach me? So I started teaching that. And then after a couple of years of that, I'd been working on myself. I used all of my academic experience. I was a nanny for years. I used all of the stuff that I did on the kids, giving them the love that I never got as a child, being who I needed. And I turned it all inwards and I did it on me instead. And people were saying, I've seen the results in you. I've seen the results in the people that come to your classes. I want you to teach me that, but I'm not dancing and I'm not taking my clothes off. So that's when the coaching started. And from that, it became apparent that, like me, most people's self-esteem issues started in childhood. And so I wanted to get in from a young age so that we had this, we talk about like, this is my plan. And then the cherry on the top is to have a generation of kids who don't care about the size of their arse or whether they've got big biceps or whatever, because this is just a meat package that I walk around in. It doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is who I am inside. And I think that's, if we all thought that way, we'd all see far more value in people. Yeah. It's that meme that goes around, isn't it? If our thoughts showed on our skin, we would be far more beautiful. And I think being who we are, what we do, doing the good, being kind, we wouldn't have all of this hatred and stuff around.
I totally agree. Thank you for sharing that. Why is it? This is a big question, and it's okay if you don't have an opinion or a thought. Why is it so bad? And why is mental health issues so high? Why is confidence so low? And these are sweeping statements, but I feel there would be statistics that back them up to a certain extent.
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever. And I sometimes feel a lot of it's put down to COVID, which I kind of. Yes, no, because I think that might have been a catalyst for what was there already. But because if we sort of, I'm kind of putting some thoughts together into a question, V. Hold fire if that's okay.
I'm ready.
So if we kind of accept that a lot of it starts when you're young, do we feel that the majority of parents weren't loving enough to their children and supportive enough? Because if we are, then we're going in the opposite direction now, where we're so loving and affectionate, we're almost generating the kind of entitled children. And once again, I'm generalising, but I think we understand the gist of the question.
Yeah.
So why is it so bad? Or why does it need so much work and support? Might be a better question.
I think, first of all, the parents thing. Obviously, there are the rare exceptions, like my family, but generally parents are doing everything they can. But they're doing everything they can without sometimes working on their own issues. Sometimes they're overcompensating for their issues that they had. You know, so one family I worked with, mum, I don't talk diets, I don't talk weight, because that's what I had all my life. My mum was always on a diet. My mum was always talking about weight. She was always measuring calories. So I do not do that with my child. And then she was playing with her 3-year-old girl in her, you know, lovely pretend kitchen, and the little girl gave her mum a piece of plastic cake, and mum said, "Aren't you having any?" And the little girl went, "No, chefs don't eat." So she'd seen that mummy never eats, you know, and that you can't be carer and eat. You know, she had all of these things linked up in her head, but mum was doing the very best she could. You know, she just wasn't trying to repeat what she'd been told, but she hadn't worked on it enough to be able to change it. You know, and there are parents who got bullied for particular reasons at school, and they do almost the opposite of that, but then forget that we are all whole humans. You know, another family, the mum would say, "I've told her she's beautiful, I've told her she's gorgeous, I'm always telling her how pretty she is." And I said, "But she just keeps getting thinner and thinner and thinner." And I said, "Have you told her anything else about herself?" And she's like, "What do you mean? I was never told I was pretty, and I know how important it is." I said, "Yeah, but if you told her that you love her hugs, that you love the way she makes a cup of tea, that her smile brightens up a room," because what she's doing is, again, with complete love, she's doing it. She wants the very best. But what she's showing her daughter in a world that's obsessed with how we look is that how we look is the most important thing about us. And when that's not the most important thing about us. But sadly, we still live in a society where we're judged on that first and foremost. So yeah.
We are, and it is sad. And this is a slightly flippant story. No, I'm not going to tell it. No, it's really bad, actually. I know, but it's so rubbish. I can't actually.
Alan, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but most of them are with you. So just go with it.
No, I'm not going to. Right. So okay, I'm going to gloss over that. I might save that for Instagram one day. So.
It's not podcast worthy, it's Instagram worthy.
I mean, come and follow us on Instagram.
What was that handle? At Yellow Tuxedo?
No, at Digital Circus.
Oh,
Live. Yeah. And Yellow. Whatever. Anyway, it's V, not us. We've never plugged our Instagram on a podcast. So perhaps we should. No, anyway. So, right. I get it, right. And actually, I'm a big TikTok fan, which I talk about a lot. And there's a big thing on TikTok about breaking the generational kind of thing. You know, you need to break it to kind of move on from it. And I feel a lot of this is to do with, you know, our parents all did the best. The majority of parents did the best they can do, right?
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. But one of the things, you know, I'm 45, which I've talked about, my kind of the generation above us, our parents, was they didn't necessarily have the kind of social and peer influence on what is right and wrong. So they had what their parents did down rather than kind of externally. So we live in a society now with social media and the internet where actually you can almost sense check, validate. Now we have the flip side of the problem, which is there's so much noise, right? You've got to work out what's good advice and what's bad advice. So do we see this changing? You know, do we see this change? And then I want to come back to you in the business. But for the moment, I'm intrigued. Do we see a change in this kind of from these generations? Or how do we break it?
That's like a question with 7,000 answers.
Yeah, sorry.
I think there is hope. There are children and young people that want to make a difference. There are people that are those children and young people who are giving up their mobile phones and their social media because they've realised it has a huge impact on their mental health. But most of us when we're kids, we just want to feel we belong. And it takes a brave soul to go, I'm not doing socials. You know, the other 32 kids in my class are, but I'm not. And that takes a really brave soul to step out of the norm, and especially at that age. And you know, I saw this thing recently. I read an article and it was heartbreaking, and it was a teacher had written this thing about kids were being asked what they want to be when they grow up, and one boy put, "I want to be a mobile phone." And she said, how can you be a mobile phone? He said, "Well, my mum says she's too busy to talk to me, but she's always talking on the phone. My dad's too busy to play games with me, but he's always playing games on the phone." And although we know that's not something that's going to happen, probably, but you can see why kids are growing up thinking this world inside my phone, that's the important bit, not this bit out here. And it's about, you two are involved in Scouts, which is fantastic, and it's a wonderful community involvement. But I would imagine you're not getting as many kids as there were when you were in Scouts, because the community isn't such a big thing anymore.
Agreed.
Which is such a shame.
Agreed.
We've got this global community in our phones, but how many of us know our neighbour's name? And it's sad.
Yeah, so
It's
true.
a really. So I've as a parent myself as well.
Sorry, can we just answer? Clara.
Our next door neighbour's called Clara.
It's all right. Interestingly, Adam Carley, his episode's gone out. He talks about marketing and branding, and he had a question of, do you know your neighbour's name? And so I was like, oh, interesting. But we've had that same question, but from different perspectives, actually.
No, but what I'm still to bring in again and come back to your life story here. But I'm part of a movement. There's a movement in the UK at the moment which I'm fascinated by, and I'm in many WhatsApp groups around because they're starting little county-based hubs for it. And it is about bringing back the brick in terms of mobile phones, and parents against giving their children mobile phones at such a young age.
Or smartphones.
Yeah.
So they recognise the need to be connected to go, "Mum, can you come and pick me up? Dad, I'm here." But you don't need to be on Snapchat.
Us as parents, we are so desperate. This is the wider parenting. We're so desperate to make sure that our children are loved and they are included and they do this and they do that. And actually, one of the biggest things is that you don't want them to feel bullied or left out. So they are escalating this need to have our children with bloody iPhone. I was on a school trip the other day, and there was a kid in front of me with an iPhone 15. I was like, she's got a better phone than I do. Why does a 10-year-old need an iPhone 15? Ridiculous. But you do that because you want to keep up with the Joneses and you don't want them to feel like they're missing out. But actually what you're doing is thrusting social media on them as well from a very young age, and wondering why they have mental health issues, because it's a horrible space out there with drinking and having sex and driving. We all have a legal age of those things, but when it comes to putting the wider world with some of the most horrific things out there being talking points for our children, and then we're wondering, why is our child broken? Well, we're doing it to them. We are with giving them love and kindness to say, here, have this. We're actually more damaging than we give. It's a really interesting conversation. They tell, bring back the brick, give them phones that have less of the bells and whistles, but have functionality and have that tracking on them.
Interesting. The other thing you said about kids wanting to belong, I said young people wanting to belong, something like, I can't remember what you exactly said now. We know, and don't mention who it is, but we know a child psychologist, and he says quite a lot of his clients now are, I need to say this because I don't know what word to use. He says quite a lot of his young clients are normal. I'm doing inverted commas because I know there's no normal and I don't know what word to use at the moment. And they are struggling because they're not part of a group. They're not, they're not non-binary or gay or whatever group that, they're identifying as. And so he says he's kind of got this reverse thing at the moment with these young people not knowing where they exist. And it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of posing that as a
information overload to the point where you wonder why these small human beings have so many big thoughts and big ideas and big emotions, and a lot of that comes down to us as adults who are putting that and projecting that onto them.
Yes, got to be happy with
then you
yourself.
only have to look at the news and what's on social media, and if you believed everything that's on there, you would believe that we are being overrun by the trans community. It's less than 1% of the global population. They're just people. They deserve to live and exist as happily as everyone else does. But because there are people going, I don't like it, they're making it into this huge thing that it doesn't need to be. Same as with anyone in the LGBTQ plus community, they're a small percentage of our global population. But because the people that don't like that are the loudest, they're the ones that are getting their voice heard. Yes. Years ago, I co-founded Southampton Pride because I wanted somewhere for my LGBTQ friends to go and create the place where I want everyone be in a world where holding hands with the person you love, as long as it's consensual, obviously, is a good place. And we had a friend of mine brought her grandson, and he phoned Childline that day because he felt weird because he didn't fancy boys, he only fancied girls, and was there something wrong with him? And that's because she was doing so much to encourage this child to be accepting of everybody, which he was, but he wasn't mixing very much with people who were straight, who were cis het, that were all of these things. And I think that's part of it. We worry so much about, it's sort of like almost the equivalent of the monster under the bed, isn't it?
Yeah.
We know it doesn't exist, but we still worry about it. And that's the thing. And that's part of what social media does. It focuses on all of these things, but also news. And, there's always stuff going on. And you think, how can anyone believe this nonsense? But people do, because they don't know any different yet.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. Conversationally, because I like to put stupid comments in at times, one of our children is not worried about the monster under the bed. He's worried about zombie killer cows. And as we like to point out to him, how are they going to get up the stairs, let alone into your bedroom?
Or open the door with their lack of opposable thumbs. But
when it's an irrational fear, it's an irrational fear. Hey, Emily, how are you and horses?
That's not irrational. They are big, strong animals, and I don't want to sit on one. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
you got questions?
I do.
I've got a question.
So, with Venus as your CIC, there, how do you do all of the amazing things that you do on a daily basis and still have time to sleep?
I don't do them all at the same time.
Do you not?
Yeah, Emily, that's obvious.
Come on, I thought you were one of those amazing jugglers who do this and go. Da-da.
V's probably anti-hustle culture. Let's be honest. It will be nice flow.
I think people. I do a lot of things, but I'm a middle-aged woman who's done a lot of jobs and lived a lot of experiences, so I'm good at a lot of things. But all of the things I do are under a Find Your Fabulous umbrella. But people think because I do them all, I can do all of these things, that I must be doing all of them all of the time. And it's like, well, actually, no, sometimes I'm sat here going, please phone and book me. Or, or I really should be writing this, or I need to get to that meeting. There's a lot I do and I love it all. I could not pick a favourite part of what I do. I can tell you that I hate the admin side of things and the marketing and the hustle culture and all of that, because I am very simplistic in my view, and if I like someone, I'll tell people about them. But most people don't do that because we're all so caught up in having to succeed and share what we're doing. And it's like the reviews thing, isn't it? We all know we very rarely buy anything from a business unless they've got reviews, but very few people actually leave reviews. So it's like, including business owners. I've worked with a lot of business owners who tell me I'm brilliant, but they don't leave reviews because they don't have time. So how can you expect anyone else to do the same? So I don't do it all, but I love everything I do.
Do you have a specific thing that you love? I know probably the most, or the thing that you have the most impact with in all the different sort of facets that you have?
It really depends on what I'm doing on the day. So last week was Well Book Week and going into schools, and there was a little boy that I talked to, and he loved writing, but I'm not a proper writer because I'm only little, but I've made my own little books. I said, then you're an author. No, I'm not. I'm not a proper writer. Yeah, you are. You've got a book. That makes you an author. And he looked to his teachers for affirmation, and it's like, yeah, you are. And that, and having a girl wrote me a poem, which was beautiful, and children stopping me in the corridor to come and talk to me about a book they've read, or how I reminded them of Miss Honey from Matilda, who's best compliment ever.
Yeah,
I know, because they could have said Miss Trunchbull, and that's a whole different conversation.
Exactly, that would have been horrendous. I'd have given up then. But then I also love working with people one-to-one and seeing the difference in them. I love working with groups of women and seeing the penny drop, one, that they're not alone in these feelings of insecurity, but that they're capable of so much more, and it's other people's issue with them, not them, that's the issue. And I love doing the speaking, and I often say, my name's Vie, I make people cry, but you'll all leave happy. And I love doing that as well, because having people come up to me and go, I thought I was alone. And in my books, You know, to have young kids go, that the first time they felt seen in a children's book. My book for adults, I've had, sadly, far too many messages of people going, I thought I was the only one that happened to.
Yeah.
And so how could I pick between them of what's the best? You know, I love it all. I really do.
And I just love everything you do, V. One thing we haven't yet...
Then you've got to leave a review, Emily. Have you not learned anything?
One thing I'd like to just touch, because we haven't yet touched upon it in this episode, is that you are living with EB as well. I'm not an expert.
Before you wrap up, I have a business question, but carry on where you're going. Because I know where the flow was going.
I'm not even halfway through my sentence yet.
I was like, blah, blah, blah. Anne, thanks for coming on today. I've got a question.
You are an incredible human living with EB, and I'm not an expert, and feel free to educate our listeners on what that is. But you have periods in your day, your week, your life where you are incredibly fatigued and you can't always... So how do you manage to support yourself there in terms of living with a lifelong condition like EB and be a successful entrepreneur at the same time?
Okay, so EB, for those that haven't heard of it, and I'd be very surprised if anyone has, is a rare genetic skin blistering condition, and it means that our skin is very fragile. Our skin's likened to the wings of a butterfly because it's so fragile. Our skin can shear and tear and blister really easily, both internally and externally. So that's why I've got to be really careful with what I eat. You know, I had a bit of chili and a hummus. They didn't tell me there was chili in the hummus at a restaurant 2 weeks ago, and today's the first day in 2 weeks that I've spoken without pain because my mouth and throat were blistered. It stands for Epidermolysis bullosa, which is why we call it EB, and then you've got the longer titles like mine, which is Epidermolysis bullosa simplex generalized intermediate.
Say that again 10 times fast.
And backwards. No.
That's why we call it EB.
Yeah.
EB.
Because of that, because again, a dysfunctional family, I wasn't taken to the doctor. I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. I've got lots of other chronic pain conditions as well. So yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I wasn't in pain, but it was definitely over at least 2 decades ago. I was told, so I told you earlier about reaching a point where I was up or out. And at that point, I was told by doctors, psychiatrists, you're never going to work again. Your physical health has got so bad, your mental health is appalling, you're never going to work again. And obviously my first thoughts were, sugar lumps, that's not going to happen. So that's when I realised as well that I had to change. You know, I reached a point where things couldn't go on. And so I did start changing things, and I'm very grateful. So with the condition, I've got a strain of it that is unlikely to be life-threatening. We get a rare form of cancer that only people with EB get, but I'm unlikely to get that. So my lifespan is the same lifespan as a non-disabled person. However, there are people who have it in more severe forms who will die much earlier. And I've lost, I couldn't tell you how many friends now to the condition because it happens frequently. It's unusual that we've got to March and I haven't lost anyone yet this year. That's unusual. And so, one, I'm very grateful that as a genetic mutant, it's a genetic disease, that I don't have it worse. And 2, I feel it's... So I wear 5 mantra bands, and one of them says always in my heart for all the people that I've lost, and another one says celebrate life, because I feel it's a disservice if, although my body is broken and in pain, and yeah, I'd like more money, I'd like to own my own home, there's lots of things I'd like. Isn't it bloody brilliant that I'm alive and that I can still dance? It might cause me pain, but I can still dance. I can still go and have adventures. I can still make a difference. And so I feel it's a disservice to all those people I've loved and lost if I don't live my life as fully as my body allows me to in any given moment. So that's why. That's how I carry on, because I know I can make a difference when I feel I'm doing it for all of them as well as me.
Getting a bit emotional, actually.
No, thank you.
I'm Vie and I make people cry, which is why I've always got a pack of tissues in my pocket.
Yeah. Which interestingly, I'm quite pragmatic. I do cry. I'm actually more emotional than Emily, but generally I get called Stoneheart
usually.
Yeah. Which kind of leads on to my next question, because you were talking about kind of other people just at the end there. Why as a business or a kick or etc.? Why not? Like, because without being funny, you could go and have a job in insurance, right? You could support all the people you work with. I know, but you could have a normal. I'm using the word. I know normal's a rubbish word in 2024, but sometimes it still kind of has the kind of gravitas it's needed. Yeah. You could have a normal, regular job. You could massively help and influence and support the team you're with, and this could be a fantastic hobby, right? You know, everything you do. Why decide to turn it into a business, kick, charity, etc., etc.?
One, because I am virtually unemployable, so I can't do the 9 to 5. My ideal working day would be 1 p.m. till about 8 p.m. and then 11 p.m. to about 3 a.m. And sadly, people don't want to talk to me at 2 a.m. in the morning. And also, like a lot of female entrepreneurs, I'm probably neurodivergent too. So my brain is constantly going off like this, which is probably also why I don't do just one thing either. This doing the business for me means that I can go, I can't do it today. I'm not doing it today. I don't want to do it today. I don't have the energy for it today. So being my own boss means I get to do the day how I want to do it. And that's really important for any disabled entrepreneur, really. That's why I heard a statistic last week that 25% of small businesses are owned by disabled entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's high, isn't it? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Really high. Yeah, but it's because we don't fit into the mainstream. We don't fit into the 9 to 5. And as for insurance, if I did that sort of thing, we would all be bartering with potatoes. Yeah. So, that's not my forte.
No, more mine, actually.
Before we come to our final question, because I'm very aware that I could talk to you for all eternity, tell our viewers, listeners, what were you doing this week? Tell us that exciting thing you're doing in London.
So I am very proud to be able to say that I have been named as one of the top 100 inspirational women in the UK.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Through Small Business Britain. Yeah, so we had, they called it a lunch, but it was a few fancy crudités and, canapés things on plates. But we had lunch at the House of Lords last Friday, which was very lovely. Met some incredible women and, just fantastic. So.
When things like that happen to you, do you just step back and go, wow, you've made that happen, Vie?
Yeah, I think that because people only see our edited highlights on social media, and my partner is guilty of this as well, and he's not on social media. The only reason he's on Facebook and has me as a friend is because you're not allowed on Facebook without a friend. Otherwise he wouldn't even have me on there. But I think people have got so used to me saying, oh, I've done this, and oh, I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. Because I don't share, I can't get dressed today because I can't lift my left arm. I don't share those things. They're like, oh, it's Tuesday, V's doing something else amazing. And they forget that for the first 3.5 decades of my life, I was too scared to talk to anyone, apart from the kids I looked after. So for me, I'm still like, bloody hell, I'm going to the House of Lords. Will they let me in? And all those things, that I get recognised for what I do. Like I was at Palace, at St James's Palace last November for the charity that supports people with EB. Took some of us there for lunch with Princess Sophie. She's the patron of the charity.
She's my favourite one.
She's very lovely. I scared her, which was, she came up to me. She was lovely. We were put in groups and we were told she's got 5 minutes with every group, but she was 20 minutes late coming to us because she'd spent so much time with the first group. We were the second group. And I was using my stick that day. And I gave her my books, which I'd been asked to do by the charity, because I've also compiled a book of stories from the EB community. And they also wanted my children's books and my book, because I've got a chapter on EB in my book. And I handed her the bag, and then she very kindly came and she said, how are you really doing today? And I thought, how lovely. And I went, well, I said, it's a high pain day. I'm spasming a party. So if you see me having a disco, come join in. And she just went, away from me. But it was lovely to be recognised that I've been volunteering for the charity in one form or another for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
I deserve a lunch at the palace.
Bloody hell, yes you do.
Absolutely.
So it's incredible. I'm the only one that's lived with me all my life, obviously. So I remember we talked earlier about people not saying things to people on the street. And one of the things that helped me change was I made notes of every nice thing that happened. And if someone smiled at me on the street, I'd write it down on a Post-it note or in my little book. Someone noticed me. They thought I deserved a smile. So to go from that to being someone who gets noticed for the things I do when I was someone who felt they didn't deserve that, I am still in awe quite frequently that this is my life, And
a fabulous life it is too. Right, Vie, a final question for you before we close today, and that is, if you've listened before, if you could go back to your younger self, and you can choose any age, be it your younger child or in the last 20 years, what would you say to yourself? Put your arm around yourself and say, Vie.
I wouldn't go back and live the life I had before, but I would love to be able to go back and say that it doesn't always have to be the way you think it has to be. When I go into schools, I sometimes get asked to do careers days, which is lovely. And one of the things that I teach the kids is, yes, what we're doing now is important, your English, your maths, your science, whatever, but it's never too late to change. And that, I think, is a reminder for younger me, but me at any age, that it's okay to change. It's okay to change your mind, to change what you're doing, So I think for me and for everybody to remember that it's never too late to make a change in whatever way you want it to be.
If you sing Michael Jackson in your head, I'm going to thump you.
I wasn't going to sing Michael Jackson, so I didn't think that was fair on Vie. But of course, I've got every time anyone says make a change. Look, V's just delivered this like proper mic drop thing, and we're here goofing off about Michael Jackson and making a change.
I'm not. But it's the idea of change.
I have to say, like, very relevant to us at the moment. So our eldest is in year 6. And she was absolutely struggling with her long division homework, right? What? Who cares? And currently she desires to run her own pet shop, right? That's what she'd like to do. Brilliant, right? And it's like trying to tell her that the work her teachers are telling her is important is probably so unimportant. Now, I'm up with standards and learning and all these other things, but they can be learnt in other ways, right? But trying to explain to her that this, and I had the thought process: do I need to learn it so I can teach it to her? And I went, no, I'm not even going to bother learning.
You're going to pick up your iPhone and then you're going to go, here's my calculator.
I decided to help her through it, and luckily we got through it. But yeah, absolutely, Vie. I think that change and everything.
There's that. On Facebook. There's a viral letter from a teacher saying, your dancer doesn't need to use physics and this and that, so don't worry about whatever's going to be in the future, because it's just the construct of education is so ridiculous these days but that's an episode in itself. An episode for the whole
right, come on, we do need to finish.
Vie, I just want to really, from the bottom of our heart, and because you have made me cry on a podcast, well done.
Stoneheart, don't get gold star for that.
Stoneheart cried. Thank you so much for giving us your time today and for sharing your story. It's absolutely fascinating, and I think you are a brilliant reminder to people that A, yes, it's never too late to make that change, but B, embrace your inner fabulous.
Make that change.
Oh, he did it. Vie, thank you very much. And to everyone else who was listening, we'll see you next time on the Digital Circus Life.